Hi, hello. I'm Krzysztof Izewski from EPF, Fundacja e-Państwo. We're based in Poland, but we're trying to act globally as open data and freedom of information. Those are international values that we try to guard, we try to develop. And the idea of this video is to show you the basics on the open data in Poland. We thought it's wise to divide it to certain chapters. So the first one, as you can see, will be devoted to the access to public information. Why? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Without access to public information, without freedom of information, we won't get open data. Because for me, open data is a bit of philosophy, but first of all, it's technology. The philosophy and the idea behind open data lays behind freedom of information. And international law, when it goes to the international events on human rights, the freedom of information is the very basic human right that actually enables us to protect other rights, like right to health or right to housing. So the first things I want to share with you when we're talking about Poland is that comparing with other countries that are in the ranking of the right to information laws made by Access to Info Europe, we are at 59th position in this ranking, which is somewhere in between. The ranking is you can see the source for that. I think that most of you are familiar, but it takes different aspects in regard. For example, how broad is the definition of public information? Who can request the information? What are the remedies, or what are the means that we can confront for the public authorities with the refusal? Is it an independent body, like for example in Poland we don't have independent body like Freedom of Information Commissioner, for example, but we do have independent body that is called the court. So very often we are going to the courts, and each year, maybe this is something interest for you, each year there are more than 2,000 cases on freedom of information in Polish courts yearly. So it means that the people are exercising their right to access to public information. I hope that the law would be even better, but you have to also remember that the place in the ranking doesn't mean that the freedom of information as such is good or bad, because everything is in practice. And it is especially very important in open data, because as the law are guaranteeing the freedom of information, they're not very well developed when it comes to the guarantees of open data, meaning putting information into open formats and other standards of open data. We have, of course, implemented the reuse directive, but in my opinion, it's more, it made the access to open data a bit more difficult at some point. But this I will leave for the next chapter of open data in Poland. So the most important thing that is happening in the legal system when it comes to the freedom of information is that we have access to information guaranteed in the Constitution. The Article 61 of the Constitution Republic in Poland said that the citizen, I will come back to that a bit later, shall have the right to obtain information on the activities of organs of public authorities as well as persons discharging public functions, which is quite ordinary thing for most of the countries. That the freedom of information covers the public authorities, so very like traditional organs, but also our constitution from 1997 were wise enough, or actually authors of the constitution back then were wise enough to include also the activities of our other bodies. I know it's in some of the countries there is a discussion on freedom of information connected with the state companies, for example, or municipal companies. In Poland, it is already guaranteed in Article 61 of the Constitution, which you can see here. The further text right shall also include receipt of information of the activities of self-governing economic or professional organs, like, for example, barristers or doctors, and other persons or organizational units relating to the field in which they perform the duties of public authorities and manage communal assets or property of the state treasury. To make it more simple, it means that every body, it doesn't have to be the public money in a traditional sense, that manages communal assets or state assets or perform duties of public authorities is the institution that is obliged to give information of those activities. It covers not only municipal or state companies, but also NGOs that very often performing their activities because of money given by the government or the self-government. So we have quite broad definition at some point, because as you can see, the definition is that these are activities. So generally, every activity of organs of public authority is covered by freedom of information, by the right to access to public information, and a lot of bodies have these responsibilities to reply for the request. So each year, actually, more and more people are interested not only in getting information from the I would call it again, but traditional public institution, but also other units, institutions that has possessed public information, which means that they have something to do with managing public funds. When it comes to this, the cities and stuff, it's also important to know that we have some limitations. So the limitations are also included by the Article 61 of the Republic of Poland. And what is very important, and it is one of the I would say most important things when it comes to the good legislation of freedom of information, that the limitations or restrictions are precisely described. So in theory, the Constitution says that the limitation upon the right to freedom of information may be imposed by statute solely, so meaning the act of law to protect freedoms and other persons and economic subjects, public order, security, or important economic interest of the state. It means that basically we cannot limit or restrict access to public information because someone doesn't want to give us information. I mean, also always has to be prescribed by a specific law. Still, we have some problems in practice with that, as I told you at the beginning. This is our standard, and every time we have a problem, we try to show that the Constitution is saying explicitly that it may be imposed by statute solely. We have some limitation in the Act on Access to Public Information, the Act from 2001. Unfortunately, we have a lot of limitations that are covered by other legal acts. As kind of an interesting thing, I can tell you that there are around 100 of legal acts that imposed some of the limitations. But the most popular are the rights to protect the privacy and trade secret, those of limitation that are widely represented in the cases when the institution wants to restrict the access to public information. We don't have, for example, in Polish law, we don't have something that is common, especially in Western countries. The limitation when it comes to the sphere of thinking or internal consultations, or something called the internal document. Although some institutions try to claim that it's not the kind of an internal document or this sphere to consult documents is not covered by Article 61 of the Constitution, which I think is just a way to escape from those guarantees from the Constitution. Basically, we could claim to get even the internal the working document, for example. So this is something that gives us more freedom, I would say, than in a big group of countries. So I already told you that in 2001, from 2001, we got this Act on Access to Public Information, quite good law, and it also precising the citizen as it is written in the Constitution, but it's each person, which is basically in line with all international human rights documents, that everyone is entitled to the right of access to public information, and actually no one can be asked for the purpose, whether it's legal or factual purpose. Why do they need data? What they will do with that, and so on, so on. So it's quite open, but I would say it's an international standard at the moment. The very good thing, which is actually, I would say, very progressive, or it was very progressive in the beginning of this century, was the establishing of the Public Information Bulletin. Each entity that manages public funds or performing public duties has to get an online bulletin or online special devoted to the public information website, where those information are being published. Some of them are explicitly described by legal acts, but it also gives the opportunity for the entities, the public entities, of those who are obliged to give the information, to put on the website whatever they think is important for the people. So it's kind of a first opening of open data in Poland, because one of the rules of this bulletin is that by putting the information there online, you have to guarantee that you can copy it actually. Of course, again, in practice, we do have a lot of problems, and we have JPGs, or we have that you cannot really copy the content itself, but still we have a lot of material that we can work on. And first of all, when we're discussing with the public authorities on the data, we're always saying, okay, you don't have to every time, you don't have to answer for individual requests, just put it on the website and everyone will be able to reach it. And this is very important because one of the rules of Act on Access to Public Information is that first, if you're looking for the information, you have to look at this website, the Public Information Bulletin, and if you don't find it, or which is also very possible, the information is not there, then you can send a request, which is a written request. It can be oral request, but I do prefer written request because it's really easy. It doesn't have to be any special kind of a document. It can be a normal, regular email that you don't have to get any special electronic signatures with that. And it's very easy, and there are no doubts that even for those require regular emails, the public authorities, the institutions has to reply for that. It's also, as I told you, like quite good thing when we are talking about open data policies with the public authorities. We're saying, I will just try to repeat it because it's a very important argument. I mean, why do you want to deal with all the requests? Like in some cities, in some places, there are, sometimes it's like 15 per year, but it can be also 150 or even more than 1,000. So why deal with that? Why losing your time? Just try to put everything on this special website. So when the request's gonna come, the people couldn't find it before, maybe on the website, you just have to give the address where they can find it. You don't have to deal with that losing a lot of time. So this is something that I will come back to the Public Information Bulletin in further chapters, as I'm calling it, of the open data in Poland, and which is also quite good, and I think it's even better than in maybe not the most, but a lot of the countries, is that the information should be given in 14 days. So it's even underlined in the Polish law that in 14 days, meaning that it should be given as soon as possible, actually not later than in 14 days. The practice, unfortunately, is that most of us are we got on this last day possible, but still it's much better than it used to be some years ago, when we had to wait like a lot of time for that. And I think in more than 70% of requests they are dealt in time. There is of course there is the permission for the institutions to prolong the answer up to 2 months from the date of sending the request. So this is exceptional only when it comes to the big load of data, when they have to go to the archives and sort of stuff. So for the time being, I think this 15 or 14 minutes that we spent together, I think it's enough. And we will come back to the issue of open data in Poland very thorough. If you're interested, please do contact us, and we try to deliver you more information on that. But the next chapter of the open data in Poland, we will use on discussing if and how we can reuse the data, because of course this is crucial things in open data. Thank you very much. Take care.